I have to admit it, the Heretics Kingdom saga isn't a series of games or lore which I'm overly familiar with. In fact, Shadows Awakening appears to be drifting under the radar of most folks. However, action RPG fans should be paying attention. Shadows Awakening is a surprisingly refreshing take on the genre, bringing some much needed new ideas and mechanics to the table. While some hit better than others, developers Game Farm should be commended for trying to do something new here. You take control of a demon summoned from the Shadow Realm, the Devourer, who must consume and possess the souls of heroes in order to walk amongst the mortal realm. At the beginning of the game, you're able to choose from 3 different heroes to consume: warrior, archer or mage. I know what you're thinking, the typical generic 3 RPG archetypes, but hear me out. Each of these 3 main heroes have their own personal dialogue, storylines and quests. Surprisingly enough, not only are each of the heroes fully voiced, but in fact all of the dialogue throughout the game is voiced. What surprised me was the quality of the voice acting on offer here. Typically European RPGs, particularly those from lesser known developers, are often plagued with cheesy and underwhelming dialogue. Instead, Shadows Awakening provides some solid writing alongside notably strong voice acting performances from the cast, including the 4th Doctor himself, Tom Baker.
This is not my story, although I am the architect of what transpires.
Whilst the writing and narration isn't immune from the occasional slice of cheese, it's much better than I expected. There's often plenty of dialogue options here too for those which want to delve deeper into the game's world. While Shadows Awakening certainly isn't a decision heavy RPG such as BioWare RPGs, many of the game's characters are more than happy to chat with you. It's nice to see an isometric action RPG embracing the lore and dialogue side of the genre more heavily. The game clearly has plenty of backstory for players to get stuck into too, with numerous locations and characters regularly referenced alongside plenty of in-game books. It certainly kept me interested more so than I expected coming into a game like this. Combat operates fairly conventionally here. You hold down the X or A button and your character begins to perform their basic attack combo. Each character can hold 3 skills at any given time, which are then mapped to the face buttons on the gamepad. Whilst there's plenty of skills on offer in the game, this restriction helps force you to build each character into a specific role, which is something that I appreciated. On the gamepad, combat doesn't quite feel as tight or fluid as some of the other top tier ARPG titles, such as Diablo unfortunately. Clicking in the right analog stick allows you to toggle target a specific enemy. Something which Awakening handles differently to many other RPGs is that the basic melee attacks often chain together and form a combo with a more damaging final blow. Whilst the combat certainly isn't the genre's best, it's still enjoyable and satisfying enough, particularly when chaining skills and characters together. The Devourer is able to find and consume 14 unique playable characters throughout your time with the game, forming a party of 4. Characters can be switched in or out of the party regularly at various points throughout the game's world. Each of the characters provide alternative skills and weapon preferences. However, it's the Devourer and the main hero which do most of the talking throughout the game. The other characters are just mostly there for combat purposes. The party doesn't exist in a traditional RPG sense. Only one character is present and controllable at any given time, each with their own mana and health bars. On one hand, I enjoyed the ability to switch between characters on the fly during combat. It allows you to chain abilities and skills together in quite a satisfying fashion. That said, on the other hand, I found that managing multiple characters to be somewhat of a pain in the backside. The game's menus and inventory management screens are frustratingly fiddly to use. There's no way to see all of the items you're holding, instead you have to navigate between different slots to see the items of that given type. It's just a needlessly messy system. Combined with each character having their own set of equipment, items, skills and skill points, the job of managing them all individually becomes a bit of a grind. An auto leveling system or an auto equip system would have been super handy here. Granted, it's worth pointing out that I've never really been a fan of manually managing my party in RPGs. I'm that kind of guy that in RPGs leaves the rest of the party to just auto level themselves whilst I focus on my character. It also bothered me that each of the characters have a specific weapon and armour type that they can use, which severely impacts the flexibility to build your character how you see fit, something which these games are often designed purely around. Whilst there's some variety in the weapons and armour within that type, such as aesthetically, the animations etc. are still the same. Instead, the game focuses on your party's variation to form playstyles and builds, with many of the skills affecting each of your characters even when you switch between them. For example, if you do an ability which granted your character armour, each of your other characters when switching between them would also receive this bonus. Where Shadow's Awakening truly begins to stand out from the action RPG crowd is in its realm switching mechanics. Players are able to navigate between the Shadow and Mortal realms simply by switching characters on the fly with a button press. The Devourer always sees the world through the eyes of the Shadow realm, whereas your main hero and other companions take place in the Mortal realm. This mechanic defines much of what makes Shadow's Awakening so interesting. Every environment throughout the game's 20+ hour adventure feature unique elements in both realms. If you spot a body slumped against a wall in the Mortal realm, switching to the Shadow realm might reveal a quest-giving ghost looking for you to help find his amulet. Bridges and pathways which appear demolished in the Mortal realm might appear intact inside the Shadow realm. Even the game's combat utilises the realm switching mechanic constantly throughout the game. You might be forced to destroy an opponent's shield in the Shadow realm before then switching to your character in the Mortal realm to damage the health and finish them off. Occasionally enemies even change form in the Shadow realm. For example, a mage which can be damaged in the Mortal realm ends up sprouting demonic wings and regenerating health at a rapid rate if you switch to the Devourer in the Shadow realm. This realm switching mechanic ends up affecting almost every single aspect of the game. As I travelled the world, I was constantly swapping back and forth between realms to check for secrets and surprises. Even the health and mana potion system feels the effects of it. You'll come across an item which holds the souls of enemies that you vanquish. As it fills up, you can then spend those charges on restoring your health or mana. It's a little weird at first, but it does work. It's this element of Shadow's Awakening that makes things feel so fresh. The action RPG genre is one which rarely sees interest in unique mechanics. Instead, developers tend to focus on perfecting that solid, satisfying gameplay loop that the genre is known for. What the team at Games Farm have done here should be commended. It is both unique and interesting. The game also features numerous puzzles. From more simple ones such as rolling boulders onto specific platforms or avoiding flame cannons, to those which utilise that realm switching mechanic in quite smart and interesting ways. It's not something completely unique to the genre, but it does help break up the action somewhat. It's these unique aspects of Shadow's Awakening that made the lesser polished elements of the game just feel oh so disappointing. The game runs at a locked 30 FPS on both the PS4 and the Pro. Whilst it does offer some slight particle effect and texture improvements on the Pro, the game features no support whatsoever for the Xbox One X, with none currently planned either. Something which at this point along in the system's life is just barely acceptable. The game isn't particularly a looker on consoles either. Playing the game on an Xbox One X, the lower resolution was obvious from the get-go, resulting in a blurry image quality. Whilst it does seem to stick to the 30 FPS lock even when things get hectic, I occasionally spotted an unlocked frame rates for a second when loading into a new area. Although that's obviously a bug, it's clear that the hardware is more than capable of pushing smoother performance. It's a damn shame that the title wasn't given proper love for the enhanced consoles. Shadow's Awakening isn't perfect by a long shot. I encountered numerous little bugs throughout my time with the game, such as the inability to move the cursor downwards with the analog stick in the game's menus when you open them for the first time. Using the D-pad however, no problem. Also, many of the core elements of the game are just not as polished as they could be, such as the menus for example. I even encountered a fairly game-breaking bug after defeating one of the game's bosses. The game locked me to the Devourer in the Shadow realm and then proceeded to tell me that I needed to use a newly obtained character to smash through a door in the Mortal realm. No reloading or zone switching would solve it, and the only solution was to load a previous save. That's not cool. It's worth pointing out that I've been playing the game without the planned Day 1 patch however, which may resolve some of these issues. Frustratingly though, it's niggles like these that just let the game down. Awakening brings a bunch of fantastic ideas to the table, including numerous that I've never seen before in an ARPG. Alas, Shadow's Awakening just isn't quite perfect. If you're in the market for a new single player action RPG, you'll find a lot to like here. Awakening feels fresh. Unfortunately though, there's just plenty of odd decisions, niggling issues and bugs present which prevent it from standing with the greats.